Welcome to Meals with Maria. For today's real food, real budget meal prep, we're doing something a little bit different. I'm super excited about it. I know this time of year for moms, it is wild with sports and activities. For me personally, I have two boys, 7 and 9, and both of them are in baseball on separate teams. So that means that 6 out of 7 days of the week, we're gonna be running this way and that way and not always the same people at the same time, which is gonna be completely wild for dinner. So because of that, I want to make sure that we have some really good freezer crock-pot meals so that I can just pull something out of the freezer the night before, put it in the crock-pot, and have something delicious to eat day of. I don't really have to worry about meals when we're already feel like we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off. Our family is trying to live a lifestyle that is generally seed oil free, free of chemicals and refined sugars. And a lot of the foods I'm trying to eat are also organic, again, to avoid those chemicals. On today's agenda, I have a Santa Fe chicken bowl, organic chicken fajitas, organic beef and vegetable stir fry, crock pot ground chicken sloppy joes, sweet potato turkey chili, gluten-free freezer meatballs, and a creamy pesto chicken and broccoli pasta. So this is my little list of all the recipes, and I have all of my recipes printed out. These are all on the Meals with Maria Plus app. That's a monthly membership subscription that gets you access to all of my meal preps and all of my meal plans. And you can even get shopping lists that go with it. So it makes it super easy. And the shopping list even links to Instacart to make things even easier when you're so crazy busy that you can't even get to the store. Inside the app in the pantry, you'll also find my freezer prep plan. So we're gonna follow this today. This explains exactly the most efficient, the easiest way for us to get from point A to point Z in making these 7 delicious freezer meals. All right, we're gonna get this started easy peasy. I just started by getting out most of the ingredients that I'm gonna need that are dry ingredients. And then as I need things from the fridge, I'll take them out so they can stay fresh. I've got a couple cutting boards out. I've got a fresh knife. I've got a bowl. I was laughing at myself because I had these perfect little holders for bags and been using them for years. And I decided I'm not gonna use plastic bags anymore. I'm just gonna try and use glass containers, which I've been able to do until today when I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna put them in Ziploc bags. So it just makes sense if I'm making 7 freezer meals. I don't have enough glass containers. Well, I already donated them, so I hope someone's really enjoying them. So I've gotta put mine in a bowl now. The green things are really cool, so I'll make sure to keep those linked in my Amazon store. And sometimes you're humbled and realize, what was I thinking? So I'm just gonna thinly slice 2 bell peppers and 1 yellow onion. And then in the bottom of that bag, I'm gonna add a tablespoon of olive oil, 2 teaspoons of chili powder, a teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of garlic powder, and a half a teaspoon of onion powder, and then a half a teaspoon of salt, and a quarter teaspoon of black pepper, and a quarter teaspoon of oregano. So lots of different spices, but this is how we're gonna make our homemade fajita seasoning. A lot of these things you should likely have on hand, so shouldn't be too difficult. I do recommend that you try and have organic spices. However, I personally do not have organic spices right now. I'm just trying to work through what I have and then repurchase when I get them. And you'll notice on my app, if you do download the recipes, that they're gonna say organic for all of the items. And that's just a recommendation. And I 100% am with you to just try your best and have what you have. Or maybe you don't wanna live that lifestyle, that's okay. These recipes are gonna be good either way. And they're still wholesome, whole food recipes. Just gonna mix that fajita seasoning around, add in those peppers and onions. And then I have 3 organic air chilled chicken breasts that I'm just gonna slice and add in as well. And that is really it for this fajita recipe. It's super simple. We're just going to put the label on this. I have created labels for you that are also available in the app so that you can just print them and tape them to it so that you know exactly how to cook them once they come out of the freezer, how to thaw, all that jazz. And you can even write the date that you created them on. It makes it super easy. So next one, we've got organic beef and vegetable stir fry, but I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys on this one. My store didn't have any organic shaved steak. I know that Whole Foods does sell like a frozen one, and they probably have more information or more better stuff, but I shop locally and this is what I got. And Beef, at least, is the only thing that it has to be grass-fed or pasture-raised 80% of its life. So I always feel better like if I have to buy that. Not a big deal. And hey, you can buy whatever you want, and it's still not a big deal because you're doing your best. Also good news, that chicken was the last and only item that we're gonna have to cut up like the meat. So we can already wash that. And I'm just gonna be able to use this one cutting board to cut everything else because it's just gonna be vegetables. So again, I've got my bag and I'm just gonna take a half a cup of either coconut aminos or you can use soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of honey, 2 tablespoons of fresh grated ginger. I like to keep mine in the freezer so that I always have fresh ginger on hand. But you can always use dried ginger as well. And then I'm just going to grate in 4 cloves of garlic. Again, you could use a couple of teaspoons of garlic powder. And then we can just toss our beef in there because it should already be shaved. If you bought beef, you can always slice it up too. And then I have 1 zucchini. I'm gonna slice that up, 1 bell pepper, slice that up, and 1 onion and place that in there. And that again is gonna be it. We're gonna kind of mix everything around, put a label on it, and put it in the freezer. Forgot, I also got out a little trash bucket. I learned this on Rachel Ray's Week in a Day, more than a day ago. I've shared it in the past, but yeah, just grab a bowl and this can be your little trash bucket on the counter and it's super great for any sort of scraps and leftovers. I've been thinking about doing a week in a day, so you comment below if you love that idea, if we do kind of like getting everything ready for the week on a Sunday or something like that. And that way I have meals all week that are kind of like mix and match. All right, this one's super easy. We're gonna do the Santa Fe chicken bowls. So we'll just start with a package of chicken thighs, boneless, skinless, air chilled and organic if you can. I've got a can of black beans. It's also super easy to make up black beans in the Instant Pot. And they are pennies on the dollar, it's so cheap. You wanna drain and rinse those black beans to the best of your ability. You can use a can of organic corn or you can use frozen. I just have frozen. Just using up what we have. Like, I don't know how much this is, but it should be fine in here. This is a recipe that's very forgiving. Got a mild salsa. If you like a hotter, anything more heat, right? You can get it to whatever level you like, whatever your favorite salsa is. And we're gonna do a teaspoon of garlic powder, teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of cumin. I just realized I forgot to salt and pepper the fajitas, but I can do that once we cook them. Not a huge deal. Do a teaspoon of salt in here and some pepper. So this Zesty Santa Fe chicken is great. It's basically like chicken bowls. It's so delicious. So I serve it again over rice mixed with cauliflower rice. And then anything you put like on a burrito bowl, guacamole, sliced avocado. I like to use Greek yogurt because it's extra protein because I make my own. And if you're not familiar, anytime I say I make my own, all those recipes are in the Meals with Maria app. So they are available there. And so you can start making your own stuff too if you want to get on the train. Try and make it as easy as possible. Next up are ground chicken sloppy joes, but I'm gonna have to get to that when I get my kids from school. I gotta go, but I'll be back in 30 and they might join me, they might not. We'll all be here and we'll just continue making our delicious freezer meals. Next up, we've got ground chicken sloppy joes and we're gonna have some hidden veggies in these. I am going to dice up real small dice on this because it's gonna be going inside of like the ground chicken and we kind of don't want it to be too super obvious. So we're gonna do half of an onion, half of a green bell pepper, and a really small dice on a zucchini as well. And then we'll put that inside of the bag. I'm also gonna put a pound of organic ground chicken. I also added a can of tomato sauce, a tablespoon of chili powder, 1.5 teaspoons of paprika, and a clove of garlic minced. And that's it. It's a super simple one. Again, I'll just serve this on homemade sourdough buns after I cook it. We've got one more super easy one after that, and then we're gonna round it out with the 2 more kind of more complicated ones. So I'm just gonna pop in here. Before we get started on the black bean chili, you wanna start toasting bread for breadcrumbs for the gluten-free meatballs. I've got the Canyon Bakehouse gluten-free. This is the best of the best gluten-free that you can get. I'm just gonna take 3 slices of this bread and toast it at 350 degrees for about 10 minutes, flipping halfway through. And this is gonna crisp it up so that we can make some really yummy breadcrumbs. All right, for this next one, we're doing a black bean sweet potato turkey chili. I actually need 2 potatoes, but I have 3 more and I wanted to make some like lunch preps. So I'm just gonna dice them all up. So just a reminder to, you know, cook once, eat as many times as possible. So we're just gonna try and make the best of the time that I'm already spending, and I'm already cooking these up. So I might as well just pop them in the oven. He does not call for a green pepper, but I have this other half of this green pepper and I think it's gonna be great in chili, so I'm just gonna dice it up. So I'll add those sweet potatoes to the bag with 1 pound of ground turkey. Then I'm gonna add in that diced green pepper. 1 28-ounce can of diced tomatoes. I've got a can of black beans drained and rinsed. Also dicing up half of an onion. Adding 1 tablespoon of chili powder, a teaspoon of cumin, and salt and pepper. And that's it. It's simple. I'll put that in the freezer as well. So, chili is great because look how full this bag is. This is a full meal and very inexpensive. All right, we're still gonna work on our breadcrumbs, but I'm waiting for the bread to cool. So we can actually get started with all the ingredients to the meatballs. For the meatballs, I'm just gonna add a pound of grass-fed ground beef. I'm gonna shred in half of an onion. I like to shred onion into meatballs. I find that that's the best way for it to cook in there. You could also do like a fine mince, but you really don't want to make sure, you want to make sure there's not like massive pieces of onion in your meatball because that's not yummy. Then we need an egg. About a tablespoon of, you can do fresh or dried. I just have dried today, parsley. So we're gonna freeze the meatballs and the sauce separately for this. We'll end up adding them all to the slow cooker together once we're ready to cook. But for this purposes, it's gonna be best to freeze the raw meatballs separate and then freeze the sauce separate. I'm using a can of crushed tomatoes with basil. You can just use any crushed tomatoes. And even with that, you can use diced tomatoes, whatever type of sauce, like tomato-y thing you have around the house. If you already have some in your cabinet, don't go out and buy anything. You can just use what you have as long as it's tomato. You could also use purchased store-bought tomato sauce. We're just gonna make our own today. That, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Sorry, kids are a little nuts right now, but we're gonna keep trying to record anyway. We're gonna get this done. 2 cloves of minced garlic, a half a teaspoon of dried oregano, a half a teaspoon of dried basil, a sprinkle of red pepper flakes, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And then I like to add a teaspoon of coconut sugar. This is optional, but I really do find that the sugar makes sauce just taste better. So that's what I'm doing. All right, so you can use, at this point the bread is cooled down. You can use a regular food processor, but I'm just going easy peasy, and we're gonna use our NutriBullet. I use it for everything. I used mine so much that it broke, and then a good friend of mine had an extra, so that was worked out just perfectly. Can you see me now? Mama. Teaspoon of oregano, teaspoon of basil, do a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of onion powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of thyme. And yeah, these are like pretty well seasoned, but we're just, the whole thing is we're gonna add them to the meatballs, so that's most of the seasoning in the meatballs. So I wanna make sure that there's lots of seasoning. If you ask me, it really can't get much better than these homemade gluten-free breadcrumbs. All right, this sauce is ready. The house is getting crazy. All right, time to get down and dirty with the meatballs. I have a cookie scoop, 1.5 tablespoons. I'm gonna do a little bit larger than that, and we're gonna make up these meatballs. And then I'm just putting them on a tray, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna freeze them. So I won't be able to put these away till later, but I'm gonna freeze them for an hour or 2, and then I'm gonna add them to my freezer bag. All right, we made it to the last recipe. Creamy pesto chicken pasta, super psyched. I have this aged Parmesan cheese, and I'm just gonna grate a half a cup of it. We are making our own pesto for this recipe. You know, this is taking me a couple hours, but instead of just making one of those quicker meal preps where we're just adding all of the sauces and the ingredients and it's like quick bing bang boom, we're kind of doing that, but we're making our own sauces, which is amazing. I'm also just gonna slice a lemon because we're gonna squeeze that into our pesto too. We've got a big container of basil. I do recommend not buying this too far in advance. My basil always goes bad so quickly, unless I have like one of those trees on the counter, which I probably should have, but you know, just just gonna pull the leaves off here. Unfortunately, this is not an organic basil, so these leaves are wildly large. But the organic basil just comes in these tiny little containers, and it wasn't gonna be enough. So what I recommend is when it gets nice out, or just generally, I think you can buy that at Whole Foods. Buy a little basil plant, water it, keep it on the counter, keep it in the sun. See if you can keep it alive. We don't all have green thumbs. I know from personal experience, it's not exactly my forte, but look at that, looks good. All right, let's go over to our NutriBullet. All right, we need about half a cup of, we're doing walnuts, you can use pine nuts as well. Smush it in there. Parm. That's plenty of lemon, I'm just gonna use 1/2. On my 7th recipe, I almost forgot, I need 4 cloves of garlic. Kind of an important part of pesto. Luckily, we can just put the whole pieces in. And then we need about 1/2 cup of olive oil, but I'll get started with maybe 1/4 cup, 1/3 cup, and then we'll pulse it and see where we're at. Okay, already looks great, but I can already tell we need more olive oil. So we'll go in with it. That is delicious. Love it. And then I've got a package of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. Again, organic, air chilled, whatever you have will do. And you don't need to cut them or anything because once they cook in the crock pot, they'll kind of shred up. And I just added the pesto to that. And I generally would add a bag of frozen broccoli because we're also going to add that to the crock pot and cook it with it. And then the instructions that are on the recipe say to add the pasta towards the last 30 minutes. And then we're also going to add some cream and stuff. So this is all we need to freeze up right now. But I realized I thought I had broccoli and I didn't. So you could also use peas if you wanted to. But I'm just going to wait and I will just grab a bag of frozen broccoli before I make it. And it doesn't really matter because it's frozen anyway. And that is the last of the recipes. So now I have 7 recipes that I can make in my slow cooker. Like I said, all the recipes are on my app. The link is in the description box below. I made a little meal plan for you so that you can just print everything out in PDF form. You can link right to the shopping list, and you're also going to get within the pantry section that like kind of plan as to, plan of attack that makes things super easy for you. So now I have 7 freezer meals, and I hope that you will also be able to make 7 freezer meals, or even if you don't like them all, you can try some of them, and that you have an amazing spring season.